Hello, Carlos. Hello, Sherry. I'm here. I was going to talk about one of two transcripts. Okay, so I have two big ins. Okay, this one is from 2015, and this one is actually from December 4th, 2015. So this is the second one. But I'm going to tell you something about like CPS and hearings. Okay, so back in November 12th, 2014, I unfortunately let OCY into my home. That was a big mistake. I should have called my lawyer and gone from there. But anyway, I let this witch into my house. Okay, but moving right along, whatever. So anyway, in the book, Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, she goes under the name of Lilith Bean. Now, Lilith Bean in this book, that's actually a demonic name, okay? I looked it up and it said a demon who scares children in their sleep. Yeah, that's her. I would have to say, yeah, that's her. Okay, so now she terrorized me more when I was a nurse working in the ER and I was still working and I still had a job. She called into the ER and they patched her through to me while I'm caring for 4 ICU patients, okay, that were going to go up to the floor. Anyway, so she was yelling at me on the phone and I've never been screamed at on the phone before, but it's always said, hey, how will I know when I'm indicated? And she screams at me, you'll be the one to hear it and you'll be hearing from me first. And I took the phone because I was horrified and I slammed the phone down. So anyway, what I want to make clear is if you're ever under any type of indication, unfortunately, you have to go through a lawyer. The lawyer, when all this was kind of happening and I was suspended involuntarily from the ER, she called me and said, I have a CPS hearing set up and it's going to take place on April 15th. It's like, oh, what? Another hearing? And she said, yes, it's probably going to last till 4 p.m. We'll get there at 9:30. It's probably going to last till 4 p.m. I'm like, oh no. I just but you have to have this done within a certain amount of time. So she was on the ball with both of my indications. So you have to wait, all right? So they indicated me December 18th of 2014, and the boys were taken away from me March 2nd, 2015, and then I had the CPS hearing April 15th of 2015. I think this recall is doing pretty good for all the stress I'm under. Okay, so see how thick these transcripts are? Okay, so I'm going to measure this one out just so everybody knows. This one is almost an inch thick, if you can see that. Hi, Pigtail. Hi, Dolores. Okay, so we're going to talk about this one first because this one is the first one. It cost me $625.50. Whoops. You see that? I know it's backwards. I don't know what to do about that. This one we'll go over next week. So let me put that down. Oh. Okay, so this is called, the case name is Child Abuse Expunction Appeal of MP, which is me. Regarding one of the kids. We'll say one of the kids. Okay, so here is, okay, so this caseworker I call Lilith Bean, she perjured herself all over the stand in the Erie County Courthouse. And she actually said to the judge that she was promoted. She wasn't a caseworker anymore. And this is something I should have told my lawyer about, was a conversation I had with her boss. And she sat there on the witness stand like this. Oh, yes, I've been promoted. I'm like, no, she wasn't. I'm thinking to myself. And I should have told my lawyers, stop this, because I spoke with her supervisor who told me she was taken out of the field because she was not fit to be around people. So I said to him, I did say to him, so you promoted her, didn't you? He says, well, I wouldn't call it that. So I actually should have called him up and said, hey, you know what? She perjured herself on this stand, just so you know. She's telling everybody she got promoted. No. I don't even know what she's doing now. She's the one, do you guys remember that I wrote the poem of the caseworker with the Dr. Seuss hair? I will somehow find it because I know it's in here hiding. Like I wish I could have, right? Oh, this is me as a nursing student before all the crap. The judge, the CPS judge, interviewing the caseworker. So she's able to state her name and occupation for the record. Now this is what she says. Okay, I'm gonna sit like this because that's what she was doing there too at the CPS hearing. I'm the supervisor at the Erie County Office of Children and Youth. However, I was working in the intake capacity when I was dealing with this family. So the judge said, how long have you been employed with the Office of Children and Youth? 11 years. Okay, so then the judge says, and of those 11 years, how many did you spend as an intake caseworker? 9.5, 10. Until you became a supervisor? Yes, that was just recently in February. Okay, and generally speaking, what are some of the duties that an intake worker engages in at the Office of Children and Youth? We investigate allegations of abuse and neglect. Judge goes, okay, what action does the agency take when they're investigating allegations of abuse and neglect? Which he knows all the stuff, he just has to ask her. We meet with the children, all of the children, the victim child, the parents, any collateral contacts that we obtain through the referral. Basic investigation into the allegations? Correct. If the agency determines that the evidence gathered rises to the level of child abuse and neglect, what action does the agency take? Just completing the paperwork, the CY-48, to indicate the status. We also discuss that with the family members, the victim, the perpetrator. She must have said perpetrator when I was sitting there with my lawyer in the Erie County Courthouse. She must have said perpetrator, I don't know, 20 sometimes. I should go through the transcript and actually count how many times. Okay, here we go. See if you guys can keep track. Okay, let's see what we do. We're looking for the word perpetrator. Judge says, okay, you stated the paperwork is the CY-48. Correct. What is the CY-48? It is the report of the outcome of my investigation. Like this. Okay. Now, during your capacity as an intake worker for the Office of Children and Youth, did you have an opportunity to become involved with the child? I did. On what date did the agency receive the referral? November 12th, 2014. And let me let you all in on a secret. This is what the courts and CPS does. They do things around holidays, anniversaries, and birth dates, okay? I think a lot of you know that. So if you want to know, November 12th is my current and long-standing husband of 14 years. That's our wedding anniversary. We were only married 2 years at that time when all the stuff went down. Okay, anyway, so this judge asked, and what was the substance of the referral? Not who reported it, but just who. What was the substance of it? What were the allegations? There were concerns that Ms. Petrie and her actions in the home were emotionally abusive in regards to the manner in which she was presenting information about the child's father. The negative manner in which she was doing that was causing the child to have increased anxiety, mental health symptoms, SUICIDAL ideations at times, and self-abusing behaviors. Okay, what action did you take after you received the referral on November 12th? I met with the child. I also met with Miss Petrie and her husband. Thank God he was laid off. Seriously. After I met with the child at school. I met with the child at school on November 12, 2014 at 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon at the school. So the same day you received the report, you went and immediately investigated these allegations? Yes. Okay. And you had spoke with the child about the substance of the allegations at the school, you stated? I did. Able to corroborate. Informed me that, and my attorney interrupted. Your Honor, if the child is going to testify, I would object to any hearsay. Well, I guess I would object to any hearsay regardless of whether or not she testifies. And the judge says, I will note your objection, but under the Administrative Procedure Rules 5052, Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes, administrative hearings are not subject to the normal rules of evidence. Hearsay is admissible. Oh my God. Okay, believe it or not, this is the first time I'm actually reading this. And it's been since 2015. Wow, okay, so it says the hearsay is admissible. Okay, so hearsay without corroboration gets very little weight, but hearsay with corroboration is certainly sufficient to support the department's case and is admissible. I'll overrule your objection. Okay, so did that make any sense? I still, it's like it's contradictory. Hearsay without corroboration gets very little weight, but hearsay with corroboration is certainly sufficient to support the case and is admissible. Anyway, let's move on. So the OCY attorney, who was kind of cute, he was wearing a cute little suit and he looked kind of cute. So what mother had been, says dash, 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 for quite a significant amount of time, mostly focusing on the last 2 years, been speaking very negative with an increase in that more recently in the past, which caused to have some SUICIDAL ideations and some self-abusing behaviors. And there were several cuts, superficial healed cuts on the legs. Pretty much just that couldn't handle it anymore. The things that her Miss Petrie was saying in regards to father. And so-and-so is her father. And for the court reporter, and he spells out his last name. I'm sorry, I'm doing my best. Okay, so the judge, okay, wait a minute. So this is still the OCY attorney wearing a suit, kind of cute. When you initially spoke with the child, did they state they wanted to see Ms. Petrie or not, or whether they wanted, services put in place for them? Okay, so they're asking a minor if they want services put in place for them. And she said, yes. And the first thing, it was stated to receive some help. They were very concerned about mother's mental state. And at that point, kind of fearful of having any contact with her at this point. And didn't want to have any contact with mother at that point until some kind of mental health treatment could be provided to her. Yeah, because I'm so dangerous. Like, wow. Like, I couldn't believe I was hearing all this. So he goes, all right, was there any specific incident that precipitated these actions? there was an opportunity to sing at the Veterans Day celebration, and there was some text messages between Miss Petrie and the child had informed the mom she would like to do this. And Miss Petrie responded that if you love me, you wouldn't do this. Kind of back and forth. Okay, I'd like to see these texts. And the child tried to show her it was nothing to do with, and mom continued to kind of go back and forth. If you really love me, then this would be happening. And then kind of focus on different route of, well, I didn't have enough notice for you to do this. That's not even what played out. It's not what played out. I think it's documented in here. I hope it is. Anyway, what had happened was I got lied to, and they actually teach your child to lie. So CPS and the caseworker especially, and the alienating parent teaches the child it's okay to lie to the target parent. Okay, so everyone's got to be aware that as soon as you make contact with CPS, they're going to train that child to lie. And I'm not the only case out there. Okay, so attorney's asking her what was the custody arrangement. She says, I can't speak specifically, but I want to say that it was 1 week with Miss Petrie and the other with the other one. But the days that it got split, I don't recall. Okay, so then he asked, was that the day mother had custody? It was. Is that getting permission then, do you know? I don't think that it was so much it was part to seek permission, but a large part of it was how to kind of deal with Miss Petrie's reaction to the fact that it was, at the courthouse, and that is where her stepmother works, and how Miss Petrie would kind of react to that whole part of it as well. Okay. My opinion is, if it's a school day, you should be in school. Okay. So, anyway, the whole thing of this is just so bizarre to me. Okay, so, because she had been calling me the perpetrator at the Erie County Courthouse. He says, explained for the court, what's your understanding of Miss Petrie's, I guess, animosity or reluctance with being at the courthouse or anything to do with the courthouse? So she answers, Miss P and the father had been to court quite a bit, and Miss P filed for several motions throughout years in regards to child support. That's not even true. No. There's been custody things, some divorce proceedings. Oh no, there were never any divorce proceedings, people. You want to know why? Because we divorced 10 years prior, and we just set out a settlement ourselves, and we had our attorney sign it, and it was amicable. So there were never any divorce proceedings in a courthouse for us, thank God. Okay. Then the attorney says, so his current wife works at the courthouse. The current wife works at the courthouse, and Miss Petrie had the belief that the father, the current wife, kind of controls the judges, and that she had favors pulled for her, and that the judges made these decisions. Very paranoid about the courthouse, that she can't walk into the courthouse because she's got post-traumatic stress disorder from being there, those types of things. But overall, just her own, feeling that only bad things happen at a courthouse. Yeah, bad things happen at courthouses. Can I have a show of hands, has anyone seen anything good come out of a courthouse? Attorney says, but a lot of it, as you said, had to do with a new wife. Correct. And her being employed there. Correct. All right. What specifically did the child state that Miss Petrie was talking about the father? Negative things? Did she state anything in particular that, what was Miss P saying about the new wife who enjoys her job at the courthouse? What Miss P says, and he kind of corrects her, trying to say, what was she doing? Much bringing us here today. The negative statement saying, oh, she interrupts. Miss Petrie has told the children, or specifically that child, that, you know, she could afford to feed the kids better or afford to feed them if the father would pay more child support, that her current husband had to work extensive hours outside of Erie County because the father doesn't pay enough child support. She called their stepmother, can I say that? Yes, please say that. Called her a see you next Tuesday in front of the children, which, I know, I'm not going to laugh, was very upsetting to them. Actually, nothing was upsetting to them. All of this is just blatant hearsay. Anyway, just overall, the child was considered, you know, the father's to blame for every negative thing that occurs in her life. And if the children were to defend that, they were punished in some way, verbally removing items. Whoa, none of that ever happened. I never badmouthed the father at all. In fact, the middle one came to me and said, Mom, just so you know, that's all they do is badmouth you over at Dad's house. I said, oh, well, that's good to know. And what happens when you're too honest in a courthouse? They come after you. So the lawyer asked, was that serious mental injury? Correct. What mental injuries was this child suffering as a result of the actions by Miss P? Depression-type symptoms, self-abuse behaviors, and suicidal ideations, but no active plan. Just kind of not wanting to be here or in regards to her mother. Was the child seeking any therapies or treatments for the increased anxiety, depression, self-harming behaviors with the Disney caricature princess? Okay. I'm sure you all remember me saying on the child's mental health. Okay, let's back up the bus. If a kid is saying to a caseworker they have suicidal ideation, boom, you take them right to the ER. Used to be a psych nurse. I had been an ER nurse. So if anyone had mentioned that, so in my opinion, that is neglect. So if the child was telling the father child to the ER and got it straightened out, that there were absolutely no cuts, any superficial cut, nothing. Can people just tell the truth here? In your conversation with the doctor, what did you feel was appropriate in this case? I felt that it was appropriate by the law to indicate the status of the report. Okay, but she didn't think it was appropriate to run this kid into an ER. Do you see where I'm going with this? False allegations ruin lives. They really do. They ruin lives. Okay, as a result of the investigation, interviewing the child and the Disneyland caricature princess, you felt that there was sufficient evidence to go forward with this. Yes, I did. Did you also interview Ms. Petrie in this matter? I did. And when did you interview her? Get this. I interviewed her on November 12th at 3 o'clock. Yeah, and she stayed till 4:30 p.m. and screamed at me and my husband while we were sitting on the couch. And I'm looking at him like, I should have been recording. We've got a crazy woman in the house. We didn't know what to think of this, okay? Okay, so she said, and I had a follow-up interview with her later on my investigation on November 14th. And then there were several phone calls as well. Yeah, let's talk about September 14th. How long did you spend with Miss Petrie? On November 12th, I interviewed her for approximately 2 hours to 2.5 hours. Okay, so let me think. She got there at 3. I really don't know if it was that long, but I thought it was an hour and a half to maybe 2 hours. Okay, so on the 14th, I again spent a pretty extensive amount of time with her, another 2.5 hours. Yeah, that's for sure. Screaming at me. And my husband had to go pick up his niece at school, so he left me alone with her for 15 to 20 minutes, where then once she knew he was gone, he said she started focusing on my parenting skills and what kind of a mother I was. This is CPS here. This is very deadly. And her intent was to satisfy the other side because Lilith Bean never interviewed my parents, and I have an affidavit to prove that, and did not interview my sister-in-law who had called OCY, left a message telling her to call her back between these times so she could talk. Never did. Okay, so this was a one-sided interview. Okay, and what was the substance of your conversation with Miss Petrie? Miss Petrie had a difficult time having any kind of conversation that was not geared toward negativity toward the father. Almost every comment she made, it was negative. She wasn't able to really kind of focus or see or accept how her attitudes toward the father was affecting the children, the child and the other children negatively. Very focused on the court system, her paranoia of the court system and of the stepmother. This is actually, if you held a mirror to this, it would be happening on the other side. I'm just like, hell's bells. Okay, here we go. Did you ask whether it was like this with the father and herself? Yes, I did. And what she indicated to me, and kind of what everybody involved indicated, okay, everybody involved was on the other side. Okay, that was the ex and all of those people, where none of my people got interviewed. Keep that in mind. CPS does one-sided interviews, okay? Okay, so then, what everybody involved indicated was that somewhere around 2012, when excuse me, I can't think of the term, I want to use child support. So the attorney goes, was revisited, and revisited in 2012. It sounded like they had a private arrangement prior to that. Yes, we did, because we wanted to keep things out of court. But when he remarried the woman who enjoys her job in the courthouse, she became a wedge in between us in our co-parent relationship and the relationships I had with the children, because she couldn't have kids of her own, and she always wanted to be a nurse. Sucks to be me. Okay. So the lawyer goes on, Ms. Petrie wanted an increase in the support. It's my understanding she filed a motion for that and ended up being reduced to $300. No, actually what happened was the ex in December of 2012 went to a child support conference, and my lawyer said, oh, you don't need to go. This was a dingbat lawyer who torpedoed the case. He says, what are you going to do, babysit me? Yeah. You know what? You go to every conference. If a lawyer says you don't need to be there, get your ass down there. Get down there, because you got to babysit them. Okay? So he made up some type of, he was vice president of company, but suddenly now he's floor manager. I don't know what figures he gave this lawyer, but they took all the child support away. So whoops, looks like I can't make the mortgage payment. Luckily, I had some help. Thank God. It was my dad. Thank God. But anyway, I got a lawyer, to be honest with you, and we went into court and we got awarded $300 a month in child support for 3 kids. Okay, so, and bear in mind, he's vice president of a company, and I was a per diem nurse working part-time, as I always have since day one of my nursing career. Okay. So that's what, okay, so then she says, oh yeah, so she doesn't even have her facts straight. It's my understanding she filed a motion and that ended up being reduced from 300 from like 750. So she's like it either is or it isn't. And where are your facts? And that is kind of the year or the time frame that the children recognized as kind of like the kids and the father. Well, it was game on. In regards to how Miss Petrie kind of approached and changed her attitude. Prior to that, co-parenting was somewhat more, it was amicable. It was workable. Well, it was very amicable from 2005 up until 2010. It was getting rocky around there because bear in mind he got married in 2007 and she started driving the wedge in the co-parent relationship. So, okay, now let's go back to the hearing. Okay, and you did say this was sometime in 2012, correct? Okay, so I don't want to drag you through this whole bullshit. I don't want to swear. Something for me to edit on YouTube. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. Okay, during your initial 2.5 hour interviews with Ms. Petrie, what did it seem to be her main focus of the conversation? The father completely, and how she feels that he has ruined her life. Oh, he didn't ruin it yet. He didn't ruin it yet. So Judge goes, right, the second time you met with her, you said was November 14th. Correct. And how long was that visit? About 2 hours as well. And again, what was the substance of that conversation you had with Miss Petrie? This was my follow-up interview with her after I had spoken with the child and all of the children, and I wanted to speak to Mother more specifically about the concerns that the other two children had, as well as the other child that was reporting, or I'm sorry, expressing to me what her attitude discussions regarding the father. Okay, was additional information brought up at this meeting that wasn't brought up in the November 12th meeting? Oh, I'm sure. I don't know specifically. Oh my God. You're dealing with people's lives and I don't know specifically. Oh my God. Okay, so let's go on. Did you discuss any of that new information with her at this time? Yes. What would that new information have been? Do you see how heavy this is? Okay. And, let me see, they want mom to get some help, that she was they kind of corroborated that she did speak negatively about their father, and that it happened often, and that was distressing to them as well. They corroborated some of the things that the other child had originally told me what happened, like calling her stepmother a "see you next Tuesday," and just some of the language that Miss P used. Okay, then the judge says, did you ask her if she recognized how her behaviors were affecting the child? I did. And what was her response to that? She really wasn't able to, when I originally had gone, I asked her very specifically, do you love your children more than you hate your ex-husband? She was unable to answer that question. She just immediately went to fixating. Remember that word, fixating. We're going to talk about fixating as we go along. On how the father ruined her life. She was not able to grasp what she was saying or doing around the children because she denied that it was happening to begin with. But then later on kind of would throw in sentences that would make me believe that it was really happening, that she wasn't able to understand any of that and how it was affecting the children. Kind of sounds like word salad. None of that was actually happening at my house. Not at all. Wasn't happening. All of this is just, she's getting a one-sided story. Okay. Judge says, did she state whether the child has any influence over the judges or anything like that? I don't know why he asked that. She did. There was a point where we were discussing general parenting, discipline type things in regards to kids. And at one point, Miss Petrie had made a comment that she was afraid to discipline or do anything because, she thought the child would pick up the phone and call a judge. And I asked her if she really thought that a 16-year-old had the capability of picking up a phone and contacting the judge. And yes, she does. Yeah, I don't know what the heck, but I remember a horrible verbal argument I was having with the said child. Yelled at me and said, "I'm going to call a judge," and ran up to the room. And I was like, call a judge? Can kids do that? Well, if they have a connection to the courthouse, they can. Okay. So anyway, was Miss P able to say anything positive about the father during this interview or the prior interview? The only positive thing that she mentioned was that he was good with woodworking and had helped with making a wood thing with one of the kids. And then she did tell me that he did a good job with that. But other than that, in regards to any of the parenting issues or relationship issues. There was nothing. All right, after you had done your investigation in this matter, and you stated earlier, you felt there was sufficient evidence to indicate this is as a substantive child abuse. Okay, she goes, yes. Little did I know that when the family court proceedings really hit the fan, that they had been calling OCY off and on for years, trying to throw spaghetti on the wall to get something to stick. Well, they did with this dip, S-H-I-T, okay? All right, so here she goes with the perpetrator crap. Okay, so the attorney says, and essentially, if you could explain to the court in detail the basis why you felt this matter needed to be indicated. Okay, when it's indicated, you can't hold your job anymore. Do you know that? You can't work really anywhere that involves children. Would you like me to read this verbatim? He goes, if you could. Okay, I'll start at the very beginning of my narrative. Yeah, false narrative. Section 4, case status. The child was interviewed under school placement that suffers with anxiety that has increased over the past year, fear of the perpetrator, feelings of wanting to unalive self, and self-harming behaviors due to the perpetrator. Okay, so now she's sliding into calling me by my name into perpetrator. So here we go. The dramatics begin. Okay, so the perpetrator constantly talking negatively about the child's father in their presence. The child reports that the perpetrator attempts to persuade her into saying negative things about her father. None of that is true. The perpetrator, myself, never brought up brainwashing to that one. I didn't even know what that was, and I didn't know alienation tactics were going on. I'm sorry, child psychological abuse over there at his house were going on. Okay, so they're filing this on the wrong person. So everybody beware of false accusations. Have stated that the perpetrator does in fact make negative statements about their father. The other siblings report that they remove themselves from the perpetrator's presence to avoid having to listen to the perpetrator's comments about their father and the fear of defending their father as the perpetrator punished them if they did so. Like, man, none of this is true. Oh my God, how long does this go on? Because I don't want to keep you guys, because I only wanted to do this for an hour. Because she's saying perpetrator. The perpetrator has offered numerous statements to this intake worker that were extremely irrational and negative about the child's father and the child. For example, that she cannot receive fair treatment in the Erie County Courthouse due to the child's father being married to someone in the courthouse. Oh, I'm glad I read that. The perpetrator refuses to allow the child to enter the courthouse because she believes only very bad things happen there. No kidding. The perpetrator admitted to this worker that she has a post-traumatic stress disorder from having to attend hearings related to child support and custody, which did not result in a favorable outcomes for the perpetrator. Therefore, the children are not allowed to go to the courthouse or any functions related to the courthouse. Well, okay, so let's, has anyone ever been to a courthouse? Okay, you do realize, I know it's a busy area, and they do parade prisoners that are handcuffed to each other, at the wrists and the ankles. I personally don't want my kids around that. I don't want them to see that part of the world at their ages at that time. This is just so bizarre. What else can I read to you? The perpetrator has stated to the child that she cannot afford to feed the children. That's a lie. That's a bald-faced lie. Because the non-offending parent does not want to pay them what she wants him to for support, although the perpetrator refuses assistance with groceries. What? That doesn't even make any sense. Getting assistance with groceries? My current husband was feeding all of us. Okay. And for the record, my current husband, as a union fellow, He, since the age of 18, since the age of, a young pup, has always worked out of the state. Why? So that he can make more money and buy more things. Because, guys like to buy, fun things before he met me. I was concerned when, my husband, I refer to him as Brad in this book, Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking Kids is Enough. He wanted to be called Brad, like Brad Pitt, and I said, no, I don't want a lawsuit. So I said, I'm just going to call you Brad Petrie, or Petrie, whatever you prefer. Okay, so then she continues. The perpetrator blames, here it is. The perpetrator blames a non-offending parent for the fact that her husband has to travel out of the area for extended periods of time for his employment. The perpetrator's husband has been working in the same capacity as a union electrician. He's not a union electrician. However, for the past 27 years, which was prior to their relationship, the non-offending parent has no influence on employment of the perpetrator's husband in any capacity. However, the perpetrator has informed the child it is the non-offending parent's fault that her husband has to work out of town. Oh, there's a lot of lying going on. As I just stated, he's worked out of town and has loved it his whole life. I don't know why they're... bear in mind, this was a one-sided interview, so people, when CPS enters your life, this is what they do. They tell lies, and it's always a one-sided interview. The perpetrator engages in a discussion with the child about the child doing this and that, and the perpetrator told the... Let me turn the page because this thing's heavy. If the child participated in a function that the mother doesn't approve of, then tells the child that she does not love the perpetrator and places blame on the child for the perpetrator's emotional demise if the child engages in any activities. And the child continuously attempts to assure the perpetrator continued to make statements that if the... Okay, so then the judge says, as a result of your narrative, what you just read, which is essentially your detailed investigation, you felt this report being indicated for emotional abuse as it met the criteria for serious mental injury. Correct. Okay, this child, what you said, was anxious, depressed, all this stuff. So the copy you have just read, that narrative, from again, you stated that was a true and correct copy of the document you had filed with the Child Line Registry. Yes, except we did make a correction as to Miss P's husband's employment. It's like, whatever. Yeah, because see, they're getting all their information from the other side. In fact, when she was at our house screaming at us, I don't think she even asked him what he did for a living. Anyway, okay, so then blah, blah, blah. Okay, so they're talking about the CY-48, which is the form that everybody lies on and tells false accusations on. Okay, so my attorney starts. Lilith Bean, good morning. You indicated that the referral for this case came November 12, 2014. Is that correct? Correct. And that would have been the day after the disagreement between the child and the mother regarding an activity, a certain activity, correct? I believe so. Okay, and the child didn't get to do that activity? Is that your understanding? Well, you're not. Wait a minute. You're supposed to have all the facts, lady. Come on, CPS. Can you do better? Per the regular custody order. I don't know where they were at. She doesn't even know where they were at. Holy cats. I don't even know if it was Dad's days to have them at the time. I just know that the child refused to return to the mom. So, okay, so the attorney says, and that essentially has been the case. Correct. Then the attorney says, okay, as far as the ... let me first ask you, ... you indicated that you met with the child, you met with the siblings, you met with Ms. P. Did you also meet with the child's father? Yes, I did. And the attorney says, and what would have been the dates that you met him? We had a phone conversation with him initially on the 12th. Ding, 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 ding. we had a phone conversation with him initially on the 12th. And then on November 24th, I met with him in person. Okay. And then my only contacts were phone contacts with them. So your initial contact with the father would have been prior to your meeting with Miss P, correct? No, it was after. It was at 4:30, after I met with Miss P. Okay. You seem to give some indication that you were aware that the parties, at least since approximately 2012, had pretty contentious custody divorce support issues. Right. And you seem to indicate that Miss P, that's me, had filed a number of motions, but would it be fair to say that the father has also had his fair share of filings, pleadings, etc.? Yes, I believe so. I mean, I was only offered that information by Miss P at that time. I didn't offer her that information. I'm going to tell everybody right now that when she barreled into my house screaming at me, she was more concerned over the father's financial data. She knew more about his financial data than I ever did. And I really don't care to know. I don't care to know. But she didn't even bring up the kids when she was screaming at me. She was constantly talking about the father and his income. I think he should be aware of that. Like, it's none of my business to know his income. I don't care. I was remarried happily. Apparently he was not. Okay, you seem to give some indication that you were aware of that the parties, blah, blah, blah. And you seem to indicate that Miss P had filed a number of motions, yes, and the father had done that too. Okay. The lawyer says, you indicated that the allegation that came from the child was that Miss Petrie had been speaking negatively about the father. Did they give you a time frame? Has this always been something that's been going on? Is it something that's been happening more recently? Well, they said that in 2012, because I believe that's around the same time that the dad and the stepmother, his new wife, had gotten married as well. Oh, I can't believe I'm reading this. They got married in 2007. They didn't get married in 2012. She just said that. Oh my God. Okay, so I highlighted this because I had a federal case going with suing these people. But anyway, I really didn't. I think I just scanned it. I didn't realize that I think I did realize it, and I somehow would like to have forgotten it. She doesn't even have their married date. And they seemed like in 2012 that this and it just got progressively had gotten worse because the year prior there were concerns regarding to the one other child. So just over those 2 years, it had just progressively gotten worse and more. Okay, so just let you know, drama runs in the family. I'm just being honest with you. Okay, so the caseworker's confused because my current husband and I got married November 12th, 2011. The ex got married June of 2007. Anyway, or was it, no, was it July or June? Well, whatever. I wasn't invited to the wedding, even though I set them up on a blind date. Okay, because that's what you do when you co-parent, right? You're just good to each other, and it's all for the sake of the kids. Wow. Okay, so now I was meeting with the Disney caricature princess. Are you aware of, right? I can't say for certain. So she doesn't even know when the child was seeing this doctor. Like, okay, I'm going to just kind of stick to the highlighted stuff that I gave. Well, I gave everything to the attorneys, but I'm just saying, I don't want to waste all your time, and I'm starting to get hot in this room. Okay, here's a question that my attorney asked. Did you observe any self-harming cuts, superficial cuts? The child did show me healed scars. Okay, did the child give you any indication whether they told anybody else about those? I believe at that point, the only person that was aware was the treating doctor. PhD. As far as your knowledge and the child's mental health, other than meeting with a doctor, was this child ever inpatient for any mental inpatient anywhere? I don't have record of that. Okay, do you know if the child was ever prescribed any medications for any mental health issues? I can't state to that. As far as the parents are concerned, did you speak, you indicated in your CY48 at one point the parents were involved with co-parenting. Was that information provided to you by the father? Both parents. At any point in time, did you reach out to the co-parent counselor to discuss or address with her what she observed? Which counselor would you be referring to? And my attorney said the name. Oh, I did. Did she give you any indication that she had concerns on both parents? Well, that co-parent counselor never returned my phone calls. So you never actually spoke to her, correct? Did either parent express to you any concern they had for the children had been addressed with the children being privy or being made aware of the issues between the parents, blah, blah, blah? Wow. Okay, so I thought this was going to be shorter. How many more pages do I have to put you through? Okay, so it's more. Wait a minute. Okay. Oh God, I can't do this to you guys. This is like, when I looked at it, I thought, oh, okay. But it goes on, I think, for 30 more pages. But I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has, because what I also wanted to show you was on page 99. This is really bad, okay? Question. Now they are interviewing the ex. Let's give the court a brief background of your relationship with Miss Petrie. When were you first married to Miss Petrie? I don't remember an exact year. We were married for 9 years, I believe. Okay, so I can recollect it was June 18th, 1994, and it was 10 years. Okay. Do you recall when you ultimately divorced from Miss Petrie? Yeah. Okay, divorced, okay? Do you recall when the year the divorce was? It was, I don't remember, I'm sorry. That's okay, that's all right. When did you divorce after 9 years of marriage? How was your relationship with Miss Petrie? Initially it was okay. She had purchased a home nearby. I did various repairs on her home to bring it up so she could get it, I believe, an FHA loan. No, I got the loan, and he and I actually amicably put in a kitchen together, and we put in the upstairs bathroom together, amicably. Yep, and that was before he met her. Okay, so he said, I helped her with some plumbing and remodeling needs and insulated the attic and various things. So it was sort of an amicable friendship or an amicable relationship. Yeah, it started as such. And do you recall how old the children were when you got divorced? I think the youngest was about 4 or 5 years old. Yeah, sorry. Try 3 years old. Okay, let me see. Okay, so some of this gets into, okay, she asks him, so after your divorce, how long were things going on a friendly basis? I mean, I would say 6 to 7 years, probably at least. There was odd stresses here and there, but they weren't what I would describe anything unusual. You hear people talk about relationships with their ex. Okay, so he admits that it was amicable. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I don't know if I can just read anymore because I'm tired. I'm sure you're tired. But I'm this far into it, and I'll have to fix my pages because they're kind of messed up. But if you can't remember dates, like real specific ones, ages and birth dates of your own children, then you got a problem. There's a big problem. And I know next week we're going to get into who is making the phone calls. Okay, so I encourage everybody to be very careful out there, especially when dealing with a CPS or whatever it is in your state, DHS, DFCS, or whatever they call themselves after they've been sued. After they've been sued, they change their alphabets around, okay? So, is there any poems you guys would want me to read for one last time before I part with you all? Let me see. The Know Nothing Judges. Oh, that would be a good one. I just did a podcast with Mark Fishman today. We talked about ADA rights and we talked about the judges. Okay, what we have here, okay, this was written November 13th, 2018. It's called Know Nothing Judges, okay? What we have here is inexperienced judges. You would think a breath of fresh air, not only to find when you lose your case and find yourself sitting in an electric chair. Oh, I don't know if I should read this one. They will occupy the bench for decades, starting out knowing what to do. All they know is how to be a lawyer with no experience, just plowing through. Judicial elections need to go. They don't need to be voted in. By popularity or partisan affiliation, that's where the corruption starts therein. Okay, judges should be voted in 4-year terms. While being rotated through the counties, more experience is needed to know what it's like to be a defendant, a jury, in other capacities. There's more than that they should know, not go from lawyer to liar to judge. Classes in psychology and narcissism, personality disorders, they need to acknowledge. Judges need empathy. Oh, that's what Mark Fishman and I talked about. Judges need empathy for a defendant. Study the cases with more thought. Then slam down their gavel and walk away, quickly deducing if someone's guilty or not. What do you think of that one? Did you like that one, or do you want me to find the Dr. Seuss hair one? Wow, I got a lot of poems in here. Okay, was it called CPS Lies? Oh, CPS Lies. You want me to read you that one? Do you like the gavel my publisher put in there? Okay. This was written for Lilith Bean, who destroyed my family. If you Google my name, you'll probably find who the players are. But anyway, I don't want to digress. Here we go. CPS Lies. I wrote this October 22nd, 2018. The caseworker with the Dr. Seuss hair came to your house without a care, with frivolous accusations and lies, ready to destroy your children's lives. Anonymous phone call, who could it be? An axe to grind, as you can see. Waiting for the right time to step in, she doesn't care that lying's a sin. Family court ready, there she sits, proudly by the judge, smiling like SHIT. Eaton grin. It's supposed to go with the SHIT. Eaton grin, she lies to and fro, ruining your family just like so. With deceit and slander she runs her mouth as you watch your case heading south. Perpetrator on the stand is all she repeats. The judge already assumes you're a deadbeat. Your reputation is destroyed. You've lost your job. The caseworker tells your kids you're a slob. Merrily, the opposition has so much to gain. Thanks for the roses. Not paying child support. Now you're in pain. Wait a minute. Let me just read that one stanza to you. Your reputation is destroyed. You've lost your job. The caseworker tells your kids you're a slob. Merrily, the opposition has so much to gain. Not paying child support. Now you're in pain. The lies continue. She cannot stop. Perpetual lying has been her backdrop. Now she will move on to someone new to ruin their family for something to do. Yep. Thank you, Unity, for all the roses. And hi, Ron, you just joined. But now I have got to run. But I just wanted to do what I thought would be a quick TikTok on the transcript from CPS. Apparently, it's the same stuff over and over again. And I don't want to bore you, but if you do have any questions, hey, feel free to contact me. I can dive more into it if you like, if you guys want to let me know if you want me to. But next week, I was going to move on to the smaller, I shouldn't say smaller because that's what I thought. Well, this other one, which is only 3/4 of an inch. Okay. Who measures these things? Well, probably a seamstress. But I will tell you about the second one. If you need to buy a transcript from CPS, okay, that transcript that I just kind of read you from, that was $625. Okay, I paid it because I had to have it for the record. Then this one I bought after my heart attack because there's gold in here. Wait till I read you what the gold is. Okay, but it was going for $513. See that $513? And I called them up and I said, hey, you know, I have lost my job. I was involuntarily terminated on September 23rd, 2015, because Pennsylvania had to have everyone have their child ABUZE clearances in, okay? So I couldn't get those into the hospital in time because my OCY hearing wasn't until December 4th. However, I was cleared and exonerated of these charges on January 6th. And I have that paper that I had read last time to you, where my lawyer had written that, I'm sorry, but you have been a target of children and youth services, something to that effect. I don't know if anyone remembers that. So now I'm losing my voice. But I will, if you guys have any questions, you're welcome to contact me on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. And you can find my books, The Cry Out for Justice, The Raised by These Wolves. This is volume 1, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. And, you're welcome. And Raised by These Wolves, volume 2, Child TRANSCRIPT within the foster care and court systems. Volume 3 will be coming out in January. And just so you know, everyone's aware, if you are approached by CPS, I hate to say call a lawyer, but I'm glad I had a lawyer. She did her job, okay? In that department, handling those 2 cases that I was cleared from both false allegations. So thank God she did that. But I'm telling you, unfortunately, call a lawyer, but then when you get into the family court system, a lot of parents just handle it themselves because, you know, who can afford this? I couldn't. I racked up close to $40,000 in credit cards. Then I did a consolidation loan, and that kind of ruins your life too. So these people, you've got to be careful of jealous and envious people. If they don't like you, run. If you're dating someone and their mother or father doesn't like you, give the ring back and run, okay? Because let me tell you, jealousy and envy, one of them is worse. Let me look that up and get back to you. But I know, I think it's envy that's worse. I read something about jealousy and envy. But this is just bad all the way around. So I'm just telling you, and I've told nurses that I have trained in the ER, it's like, okay, we're going to go straight cath a patient, but I'm going to tell you this first. If your mother-in-law, future mother-in-law hates you, give him the ring back and run. And that goes for you guys too out there. I'm looking out for everybody. If the mother-in-law or the father-in-law hates you, let him keep the ring. Just run. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I tried to make things learning experience and fun and kind of humorous. But I'm going to love you and leave you. And we will do this again next week, okay? And in the meantime, if you have any questions, you can contact me at dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. Okay, so ciao. See you later.